Creatives Discussion Panel. It's always a mouthful for me as I try to get through it. No, this is awesome. I've got with me here 5 amazing creators, and I'm luckily getting to tag along as the host today because I have Dave, and I felt that 2 of us answering the same questions was redundant. So if you are here watching live on Twitch, from whatever channel you're watching live from Twitch from, because I know there's a couple that are either hosting or streaming or whatever, we have chat. So if you're there in chat and you have questions that we aren't asking, then feel free to drop it in. And if it's on one of the other channels, then they will pass it off to me or ask it themselves, and we'll get some awesome discussions. Today we're going to be focusing on a little bit of the creative process, a little bit of the publication process, a little bit of perhaps just being a DM in general, because I know all these guys run games. And so, yeah. First, I'd like to, I guess, have everyone just do a quick introduction. Who are you? What's your channel? Anything else you might want to drop, and then we'll get into questions. So I'm going to start, as I set up the stream below me, I have Jeremy Childry, if you want to kick us off there.
Hey, everybody. I am Jeremy. I am the president of Gordinaak Games, which is fun. I don't know, CEO or something. I don't know. I do that. And you can find my stuff at gordinaak.itch.io or maybe gordinaakgames.itch.io. I can't remember, one of those two. And then I'm at Gordinaak Games everywhere else. And I make books mostly. That's what I do. I made Gordinaak and Cocaine and Alligators. And I'm working on my most recent Kickstarter, Dive, which also has a book called From the Deepest Trenches. And then on top of that, I'm working on Cocaine and Alligators 2 Rat World Adventures. So, yeah, I think that's it about me.
So there's our slacker of the group. Oh, my God.
Slacking so much.
Very nice. Very nice, man. Very prolific. That's awesome. Next on my stream layout is Scott Ools.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize I was coming up so quickly. Hey, everybody. It's me, Scott, from Heroic Studios Gaming. You may hear that if you ever watch any of my stuff. That's how I start usually. But I am just here to talk about stuff. I have, I'm the CEO or president of Heroic Studios Gaming. Just a company I founded after working on Maximum Apocalypse RPG, and then I'm sort of using it as the avenue in which I did Beta Red RPG, and then the thing behind me, which is from the Few and Cursed RPG, and then I have a bunch of like random adventures that are also available, all of them on drivethrurpg.com. So yeah, that's what I'm up to. That's me. That's who I am.
Perfect. Next, I have my partner in crime, Dave. Can't hear you. You're muted.
He's so muted. He doesn't even realize.
What a fail.
I failed. I'm sorry.
You're here to represent my company? Jeez. No.
I know. Yes, I am co-creator of the XP Guild. We are a duo, me and Bill, and you can find us at the XP Guild, Twitch, to Facebook, to all the fun stuff. We primarily stream live shows on Twitch. Matter of fact, there's a game tonight. But we also do gaming products, which you can find over there on DriveThruRPG under the same name. So
cool. We're going to go over to Paul with the Raven Rolls.
Hi, everyone. Paul. Also, you can find me Twitch, Twitter. Technically, I'm on TikTok. I don't have anything there. Instagram. It's the Raven Rolls at all of them. I don't have any supplement stuff or RPG stuff. I'm working on things, but life usually gets in the way. But I am working on a few things behind the scenes. Hopefully this year I'll have something out. Working with a couple others, and hopefully we'll have something out soon. So
Great. Perfect. Last but certainly not least, we have Jeremy, the other Jeremy, Jeremy Lilly from the Erasmus Expeditions.
Yes, sir. Hello, everybody. My name is the other Jeremy. I do run a channel called the Erasmus Expeditions, where I do a lot of live plays, Dungeons and Dragons, and various other systems. Run, one shots, trilogies, campaigns, all that kind of stuff. I also have a channel. No, I do have a channel, but I have a show that I host called The Help Action, where we have a guest on and we talk about RPGs and things like that. I have a couple of projects kind of in the works. I'm working with a couple of different people. There's one called Biddy Battles that I'm working on with Run Right Play, with Keel Adam and Petra Bacchus. There's another one I'm working on with Philip Matty called Treasure Quest. And then I have a product of my own called Gore that I am working on, hopefully in talks with some people about possibly coming on board and helping me get that into becoming a reality. So I'm very excited for what the rest of this year kind of holds for me. But mainly just kind of running games and having fun. So I'm excited to be here.
Cool. Thank you again for everyone joining us. If you're in the chat, at least on my channel, I do have the links I dropped in the chat because OBS / I don't know if it's Twitch won't let me put everyone's links in there because the characters in my description for my go live notification. So check out the chat if you need them. Otherwise, I do have them in our name cards underneath everybody's picture there. It's got, as best I can, at least one of everyone's social so that you can find somewhere where these people are. With that, perhaps we should get into some questions. Seeing as many of us have created products, put out products, we have a few in that vein. And again, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we will try to get to them as soon as we can, if it's not in our question list already. So when creating a new game system, I know some of you guys have created your own game systems from scratch or from whatever. Where do you start with the mechanics? Do you alter an existing game system or start from a mechanics concept? And I think we'll just, whoever wants to kind of take this first, probably just put your hand up really quick so that no one else jumps in and then answer. So we've got Erasmus Expeditions.
Yeah, so it kind of depends. Sometimes I have an idea for a game mechanic that I think would be a really cool idea. And then I'll try to find a way to kind of couch that into its own full-fledged system, adding other subsystems kind of onto it and things like that. But conflict resolution is, like a central, design point of any game. You have to figure out how you're going to resolve the conflicts that come up in the game. And once you've kind of settled on that, the rest can kind of be somewhat modular whenever you add things together. So it really just depends. I've had game systems that have come to me like that, where it's just like a singular idea behind a fun dice mechanic or, whatever, and then build the rest around it, or vice versa. I have a goal that I want to achieve with a particular kind of gaming experience, and then I look for mechanics that help support that. So I think it just kind of depends on however that lightning strikes you, just go with it.
Yeah, I mean, adding to that, I think that he's right. Like for me, it's been both have happened where I've had playing a system where I get sort of an inspiration on how it could be done differently, or and then the other times I was like for Beta Red, I was on my way to work and this thing that like I had read but apparently had read wrong had inspired an idea in my head that by the time I got to work had developed into a full like conflict resolution system. But I think the core thing for building a game is to start with whatever and using game design terminology so that everyone maybe at home who has some experience can understand. But determining what the core loop of the game is usually where you start. So what is the action that's going to happen the most in your game? Now, that could be shooting guns and stabbing people, or it could be, social conflicts or whatever it is that you want the game to focus on. and do over and over and over again. Like, figure out how to resolve that particular situation, and then from there just build the rest off of that as sort of secondary or tertiary loops of that core mechanic you want people to do over and over again. And that's basically in my opinion, the best way to build a system, because then your game focuses on what it is you want to see happen, and then from there everything else builds off of that. So yeah,
I think for me, I get too bogged down with mechanics and things. I get tripped over, stuff like that. But I get the ideas and I just will go, ooh, and then I write it all down. And pretty much I hand it over to Bill and say, okay, here, figure out the mechanics for this. How does this work? How can we make this, happen? And Bill's really good about like going, okay, Dave, this is bullshit, or this is okay, we can make this work. But we may need to do this, this, and this. And then it's just kind of back and forth with like, yeah, but I've got this idea and that idea. And Bill's like, shut the hell up. We're going to do this, this, and this. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I guess sometimes, if you get a good partner to bounce ideas off or that complements you really well, is nice. Or just having a good support group for like our community is always good for that. For me, most of my stuff tends to be right now D&D, as it's one of the more common systems, and I find it's easy to tinker with, to changing a few things. One of my settings, I'm redoing the classes, and starting off as a base, there's always which classes, the base of the classes, but then redesigning them, changing them. Other systems might be easier. I think for another setting I did, I used slips my mind now. It's the Star Wars one, the generic one for Star Wars.
Hyperspace.
No. The one that the official Star Wars Fantasy Flight Games.
The Genesis system.
There we go.
Oh yeah,
Genesis generic system. There we go. Genesis. That one there is easy to make change because it's very little. It's more of it's very simple mechanics to that for your own classes or stuff like that. So, and I'm looking possibly making my own, but it's always difficult coming up with a mechanic, I think, that you want to use in some cases. I know both Jeremy, Lily, and Scott, I know your systems well. The Expedition engine is very simple. And also, Scott, both of your ones, especially Beta Red, nice, simple mechanics to that as well. And I'm sorry, Jeremy Children, I haven't played yours yet, so I can't comment on that.
That's lame. Nope, you're done. You're off the panel.
You brought up a really good point, though, Dave, whenever you were talking about having, Bill, passing things off to him. And then Paul reiterated and said, it's always really nice to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. There's been a lot of like groups that I've been a part of that were like collaboration, groups of creatives that were working together on a project. And one of the things that I have found to be kind of a universal truth is very early on, you have to establish that you're going to be open and honest with the communication and the feedback that you give each other. When you're trying to be gentle about giving notes and feedback that might be negative, we have a tendency of trying to put it in the shit sandwich, like Barker talks about, where you kind of put it in compliments and try to deliver it in a way that is palpable. But like sometimes you just have to give somebody an honest feedback and not be rude or mean about it, but you have to find a way to give and receive negative feedback in a creative way and not have that be a problem. Because everything else is just going to slow down your process.
I mean, yeah.
Well,
I was gonna say, just on that note, that I agree with that. I was gonna say that that's actually one of the best things that's been for me, and I was gonna give a shout out to Jeremy in the corner there, the other Jeremy, because that guy will straight up tell me when stuff is just terrible. He'll be like, you know what, bro, this is just stupid shit. Like, what are you doing?
Wait a second.
But no, like a perfect example was like when I was making Maximum Apocalypse and I was doing all this stuff. He was straight up like, yo, I have to read like 10 pages and this sucks. You need to go back and redo this. And, I was like, wow, this hurts. But he had a good point, and it made sense to me that like front loading my game with a bunch of stuff that people are just going to skip over was probably useless. So, I mean, you do having somebody to bounce ideas off of, or play testers to throw things at you and be like, this sucks, is great. And so,
well, and what I was going to say is that like whenever you're building like the group of people, you have to make sure like that you really respect these people, right? And that that they respect you, because if you know that everybody's intentions are like positive, right? Like then you're going to be able to take the criticism that they give you, right? And I know people who if you give them any, I think it's maybe because of like a lack of confidence or something like that, but if you give them any kind of criticism, right, honest criticism, I guess maybe they're like too married to their own ideas. It probably has something to do with ego on top of that as well, right? And it doesn't work well. But if you respect the people that are giving you feedback, that's why I used to go a long time ago, I used to go to like the public for feedback, and that was awful, right? That was the worst thing I ever did. But going to like friends and people that I trusted actually works, right? Like it actually works. But like back to like the original thing, I've never had a single original idea ever, right? So what I do is I take a game that I already like, and normally the games that I like are kind of small anyway, and then they have plenty of room to add things to or like subtract or whatever. Like for instance, the other day, I think me and Scott were talking, and I was like, what if the resolution mechanic was like Battleship? What if
yeah, I remember that discussion.
What if there was a diceless system with that where it was Battleship resolution? And then, like that. And then that's what, like, and if I was going to continue to develop that game, the more I think about it, I might, because it sounds like a good idea. like, hopefully Milton Bradley's not listening to me say Battleship over and over again.
Yeah.
Flag. I'm going to say flag kick out now.
Yeah. But
I've done it with a white peg, so it's fine.
Yeah. But it goes the other way too. Like you just think of like the thing. I don't even have an idea for like a setting you would attach to the Battleship resolution game, or would you even attach a setting? Would it be like a Savage Worlds type thing, whatever, right? But like sometimes I guess, and honestly, the best way for me is the way that gets it to the table the quickest. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all what way you do it, as long as it goes to the table quick, and then the things that are bad die, right?
Yeah, like
and to kind of piggyback. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go. You do you.
I was just going to say, the Expedition engine is largely based off of Lasers and Feelings, which is kind of a very simple game. It's either or basically is how Lasers and Feelings works. And I played that, and I played a couple of hacks of it, and I really enjoyed that. But I kept finding it was too difficult to shoehorn every decision into either this or that in a lot of instances. And I was like, God, this needs to be just a little bit more robust. And so I started tinkering with it, and that ended up becoming the Expedition engine. And I kind of added in the diminishing die mechanic from like Black Hack as a way to handle resources and health and things like that. And it's by no means is it like a sturdy system that you could play for a year and a half with the same group of characters or anything like that. But it's really fun for playing a quick zero prep, like 5 to 10 minutes, then you're ready to go. kind of game where the mechanics get out of the way and just let you tell hopefully a fun story. But it all came because of, an entirely different game system.
Yeah, and I was going to say, there's nothing wrong with having no original ideas. If you can creatively mash up a bunch of ideas, that's where, like, a lot of different games come from, right? Like, a lot of people come with this idea of, like, oh, I like Cowboy Bebop, and I like Aliens, so I'm going to create this game where you are, like, doing this space jammer thing that also has weird monsters that burst out of your chest. Like, like, you can come up with some really cool stuff by mashing ideas together.
Gordinaak is absolutely Mad Max and the Warriors with Max.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's it. That's
exactly what I say. Like, I always try to pitch it to people because I just love Warriors. I'm always like, hey, have you seen Warriors? It's like Warriors, but like in a Mad Max world.
But also feudal Mad Max, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm the worst at pitching my own game also. It's like, I don't know, man. Figure it out. Read it or something.
I mean, I think there's a benefit, right, to picking something similar to something else or designing from a standpoint, because we all have these already built-in expectations about certain systems or certain things. Like, you go, okay, I like D&D systems. Like, I like the D20. I like doing all this. I like the crunch of D&D or whatever. But this other idea with this other mechanic sounds really cool. So it's easy to onboard people. Or like the Lasers and Feelings is easy to onboard people to that. You're like, here you go, and this is how it works. If you played this game, then my game is very similar.
Yeah. If you have a genre, it sort of creates like, people can understand a tone or a theme like almost automatically, because the tone or theme is pretty common in that genre, right? Like, if I say post-apocalyptic, you're going to assume something, like, you immediately think of some kind of like empty world, desert thing with a bunch of dead people all over the place, right? End of the world kind of stuff. And so I don't need to explain to you the themes of like loss and hope and rebuilding society and all that stuff, because you already have it in your head with that genre tag, right?
Exactly. That's a good shorthand.
Yeah.
Well, and it escaped. I lost it.
Idea was there.
I lost it.
It's okay.
We're talking about like using an existing mechanic system is, that engine runs, it works. So then you can get around, the things that you don't think work, or that take away from how elegantly it might work, and make it run better to your tastes. The changes that you need to make can be minor adjustments or adding things onto it that don't mess with the general way that engine functions, and just add other elements that fulfill the tone or the genre that you're trying to get across with the system that you're building.
And I think like we also kind of, like, as designers, need to be a little bit scholarly in our knowledge of like what exists already, right? Because like I get a lot of people like asking for advice, like especially like really like casual D&D fans, like, people who are pretty like narrow in their knowledge of RPGs, and they have an idea for a system, and then I'm like, hey, maybe you should look at this other system that does the thing that you're already saying, right? I think that you need to, and I think that's kind of a given, but sometimes people kind of take that like, and they kind of like nobody really wants to hear hey, maybe you should just check out this other game, right? You know what I mean? But like, but maybe you should have checked that other game out before.
I got irrationally angry at somebody one time where they were talking about making the He-Man RPG. They're like, oh, I want to make a He-Man RPG. And then they're like, in the same post, like before they actually got to the comments, they were just like, I understand that there are 2 other He-Man RPGs that exist, and I've never played them or looked at them, but I want to make a He-Man RPG. And I was like, so then my first comment was like, okay, but what if the 2 other games do exactly what you want He-Man RPG to do? You should probably check on those before you go create your own thing. Because if they do, I'm like, and I was like, honestly, if they do what you want them to do, then fine, they exist. If they don't do what you want them to do, then sure, go ahead and recreate your own version. But at least make sure that you're not just basically doubling up on someone else's RPG.
Now, if you
Sure.
That's not your fault. That's
Yeah.
what's really interesting in your game.
Yeah, that's fair. I will agree with that.
Yeah. But if you're literally saying I want to create He-Man,
Yeah.
and then you haven't looked at them, then you create the same one as someone else, like you're just opening yourself up to a loss of respect from the whole community. B, lawsuits if you do put out and actually make anything worthwhile that they're gonna sell or whatever. So yeah, it's important to do your research, and you don't want to be like, oh, I want to make a game like this, and then make that game exactly the same.
Right.
So yeah,
Constantly watch yourself as far as that's concerned, because it's very very easy to cross that line. So.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I'm not as concerned about the lawsuits as I am just like somebody else has already done the footwork. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why overwork yourself whenever you could focus on something?
Right.
Because once it does come out and people know that it's similar to that other thing, people are going to constantly compare the two anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
If they even check yours out, so
that's like our world setting for the XP Guild. When we first started, it was just like, okay, we want it this way, this way, this way. But my biggest concern was like, okay, we're crossing that line. Is it very Eberron, or is it not? Because people are going to go, well, why should I play that? I can just play Eberron. I could just do Eberron. Blah blah blah. And it's just like, okay.
I mean,
make it unique enough that it's not that. And yeah, I mean, same thing with game systems.
I mean, I could probably talk for.
Coincide with each other, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, right. No, you're not wrong. I mean, I could talk for hours about all the people that told me I shouldn't have made Maximum Apocalypse, shouldn't have made Beta Red, because those games already existed in other forms. They're like, why make another post-apocalyptic game when there's hundreds of other ones? And I was like, well, this is why, and like, here's my unique thing. Or like, why did you like Beta Red was the one where I got the most criticism, because I had it set to come out, I was like developing it and everything, and then Cyberpunk 2077 came out, and then everyone and their brother thought I was just trying to piggyback on that, which is not true, but also fine if people bought my product because of it, right? Like, I'm okay with that. Yeah, but there was this whole like slew of people that were like, why are you creating another Cyberpunk RPG when one already exists? And I had to go, well, actually, there's like dozens, but that's fine. That's fine if you don't realize that there's like others than just Cyberpunk 2020 / Cyberpunk Red. But that was the thing. Like, people were like, why create it? And I was like, well, and here's the main reason why. Have you ever tried playing a robot in any of those other games? No? Try Beta Red. You can absolutely play a robot. So, but no, you're right. Like, they're going to get compared anyway, and people are going to say, why did you make that if this already exists? Why did you make Gordinaak if there's already Mad Max, the RPG or something? You're going to get that. But as long as well, first off, I mean, on that note, talking about the design stuff, you should do the research, and then also know what makes your game design unique. Like, what is it that you're trying to do that is different from those other ones, because that thing, whatever that is, that's the reason why your RPG exists. And if it's multiple things, then great. Then you're focusing. You're going, these things are different, and so I wanted a post-apocalyptic game where there were aliens and killer robots and supernatural creatures. That's what I wanted, and that's why this game exists, right? And so you should be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's supposed to be your pitch too to other people, because if you start out with all that other stuff first, people are going to assume, well, why did you what we just talked about?
Right.
If you focus on that unique product or that unique thing you got, then people are going like, what? Wait a minute. But
what if you're like, well, I like the He-Man universe and I like these other He-Man games, but they don't do anything with like this multiverse travel thing, and like being able to suddenly pop up on Earth with like a cool little sound tool that a little guy does, then like I want to focus on the musical aspect of He-Man, right? Then like maybe your version of He-Man is different from the other versions of He-Man. I mean, you could. You've seen He-Man for like Masters of the Universe from like 19.
Our Hero the RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Bill wants us to move on.
Bill's like, next question,
I mean, it's cool. It's great discussion. I'm just saying, like, I have like 10 questions or more, and we've gotten through one. So,
welcome
which
to
is
running
awesome.
a panel.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It makes my life easy because now I only have to ask like 3, and then we're good. So I'm going to combine a couple here. Is couple things, since we've talked about people putting out games, modules, things like that. So once you've written a module or adventure or a game system, and you've kind of tested, you've got it out there a little bit, as far as that goes, how do you go and turn it into like a final product that you're going to sell? And then after that, how do you promote it / publish it in the most efficient way to get the most traction with other people?
Okay, so I'll step forward and field this one a little bit. So the best way, right, is to have enough money to print the book and pay for all the art out of pocket, right? That's the best way. It's not realistic for most people, right? And so maybe if you're doing something that you want like a physical product for or something like that, maybe you should start small first off, right? Because it's kind of expensive to print a lot of books, right? And honestly, shipping a lot of books, I've lost hundreds and hundreds of dollars because shipping a lot of books is hard and they get ruined in shipping a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So like as far as like finishing a product and everything like that, this is like a super detailed, and you really got to do your research on it, right? So like you need to find out the specifics of your printer, right? You have to, this is important. You need to learn about like bleeds and margins and gutters and everything, right? Because if you don't do this, you're just going to have a book that's just unreadable. Unreadable. Is that a word?
Yeah, it is.
Is unreadable?
Yeah, I was thinking garbage. Yeah.
And you're going to just have to be realistic about things like art, for instance, right? Do you want a book that's going to have like super awesome art that nobody else has that's specific to your book? It's going to cost a lot of money, right? Like, and then even then you have to make sure that you communicate with them the specifics of the printer, right? And the specifics of what you want and everything like that. So I think like the initial question is almost too in depth to get into on a panel that's not about that, honestly, because it's a super, there's a lot of intricacies depending on like what you're trying to present, right? But the one big thing I would say for the first part of it is be realistic about all of it, time wise, cost wise, art wise, right? Like if you're going to be using stock art, like be ready to see that same piece of art in another book that you're looking at, right? Like if you're okay with that, that's fine, right? And if you're going to use stock art, make sure you read the terms of the agreement of the stock art, right? That's super important. A lot of people think that you can just drop it in willy-nilly and use it. A lot of the time you can own what you paid for was the use of one piece of art in that stock art package for one publication. And that's it. You have to buy the stock art package again if you want to use another piece of it, things like that. Yeah. As far as like marketing, right? It's honestly the most grueling part of all of it, right? For my big projects, Dive and Gordinaak, the marketing for that was essentially, for those Kickstarters, was essentially maybe a couple months of daily posting everywhere where it was okay for me to post. And like if you're if you're talking about marketing, you also have to be realistic about the fact that you're doing business at that time, right? You're doing business stuff. It's not just because it's RPG stuff and it's fun, it's still business stuff, right? And like some of business is not fun, right? Like some of it's annoying where you go and post somewhere where it's kind of questionable where the rules lie, and then you get attacked for it or whatever, right? Like, but you have to post every single place where it's visible. You have to get everybody to try to share it, if possible. Offer perks if you can to get people to share things, right? Like, but you have to be annoyingly visible, right? For marketing. And I only do it about 1 to 3 months per year. I'm only willing to give my soul to the marketing machine for 1 to 3 months per year. It's paid off so far. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep that up. I might have to do it more eventually, but it's time consuming, and you have to do it a lot, right? 7 to 10 times per week, period, right? Everywhere you can. If you have a lot of money, spend money on advertisement, right? But if your Facebook page doesn't have a lot of engagement, don't spend any money on advertisement, because the algorithm has no idea what kind of people like your page or anything like that, right? So these are also things to consider, right? Like if the algorithm can't figure out what kind of people are going to your page or your then it does no good to spend money on advertising. You have to get the audience before the money on advertising, right? And and I think the big thing is like the people who I see who are successful are active in the communities that they're getting, as they're actually a productive member of the communities that are supporting them. And if you're not a productive member of the community that you're supporting, then they're not going to support you back, right? Yeah. And I think that comes first with the marketing thing. Honestly, is you can't just even though I only market for like 3 months, I've paid my dues. I've been a moderator on the Mothership Discord since forever, right? I was down in the trenches answering the same question over and over again for 2 years, right? I had a big Exalted Funeral Discord. I'm not as active anymore because I have a lot of
life stuff,
jiu-jitsu, mostly just fighting, but yeah, you have to be active and not just active, but productive member of the community that you want to try to market to in the first place. Yeah. Is that all the questions? Did I get all?
Yeah, I think you hit all of the points. Yeah. But I was going to add to that. I was having a conversation with Amit Moshe from Son of Oak Games, who makes City of Mist, and that was sort of the same conversation we were talking about. I was like, at what point, I feel like I'm not doing enough marketing, and he was like, yeah, at some point you stop game designing and you start becoming a social media content person, right? You do have to change gears in order to start marketing your thing. So once your game is made, then you have this, okay, what is my production stuff? And then when that's done and you have the physically produced product or the digitally produced product, then you have to spend your time basically being a TikTok person, and just constantly blasting the subscribe and share to everybody. But it's like a necessary evil. You don't want to do it. Nobody likes spamming the crap out of their friends, right? But
Scott, hold on, I have one more part. Yeah, I have one more thing that I forgot to say that's super important that I won't remember. Yeah. I get a fucking editor. That's the biggest. Get an editor. Yeah. That do not try to pay somebody to look at. Don't get a free person if you can help it, right? Because they're not going to do it hard enough unless they're your really good friend. You know what I mean? Like Scott might see if you can get him to do it for free, he might do a really good job, because I got him to do it for free for me, and it was amazing. But I'm not. Most people aren't going to do that for you, and I'm not even saying Scott will, right? I told you we've known each other for a long time. Yeah. Before we set our rates.
That's another part of paying dues, right? So you've paid dues with that relationship with other people too.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's a resource that we've all called upon, I'm sure, at some point. Hey buddy, what do you think of this? Even if it's not the full project, even if it's just like a, hey, what do you think of this like design concept here? And luckily, you know, if you've built those relationships right, then we're all willing to do it. But we all are busy individuals, and finding the time for just some random person who wants to DM you, though we'd love to more often than not, it's not always realistic. At least to a quality level that would be commensurate with the project that you're working on.
I mean, yeah, to be fair, I'll let everyone know that I did work for Gordinaak Games for free, but that's because I wanted to see the game before everyone else got to see the game. So I was like, yeah, give me an advanced copy. I want to see it. Give me the game. Well, but I'd also seen, I think during the process too, so I knew what we were getting into. Yeah.
I think also like if we're like the amount of free work that you've done for Gordinaak Games goes beyond just that. I think probably it goes beyond that. Because I'm sure you could bill me for consulting as well.
Right? I mean, I think we could I think a lot of us could bill each other. Like this conversation between Dave and Bill, like I think that friendship is that friendship that's like a special thing.
Are you guys not keeping your time and for how long you're talking?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. I thought we were just trying to.
I was gonna say there's one thing that I think that you didn't hit necessarily. I mean, there's digital distribution is a thing now that is pretty big. I mean, like even Jeremy's link there is his itch.io thing, right? Like there's digital distribution that is easy to get done once you've got it like laid out, edited. Right, you've got the art paid for and all that stuff. Your first step, if you want to, make it, you're like, I want this to be a physical book. Well, that's good, but you can also distribute it digitally. You also have methods there that cost you nothing really in the long run. If you've already done all the work, if you've already like made the product and you've got it ready to start printing, then you can distribute it digitally for some money, and then that will also help you with those costs that you need for those other things, or even pay you back for the art and stuff. And I'm not saying it's going to be huge. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think I've probably only sold like 400 copies of Beta Red digitally, but that's still 400 copies of Beta Red that I didn't sell before, right? Like, that's still cool to me, right?
And Jesus, the cool thing is, I was gonna say also, and the cool thing is, like, I created an art book a few years back. I still got boxes of art books sitting off, taking space and stuff like that. Yeah. If you do it digitally, you don't have that space to deal with. You don't have inventory and all that other junk to deal with.
That's the other thing I would say to look into is to save yourself a lot of time and money, right? A ton. Maybe look into fulfillment centers as well. If you're trying to, if you've sold a lot, if you're selling a lot of books, right? Like look into somebody else to fulfill your orders for you, because you end up being able to completely cover the costs of shipping and the fulfillment center within the cost of your shipping, right? So like potentially look into that as well for like it sometimes you can. I'm not saying that, just look into it also.
Yeah.
Sure. I think a lot of the digital places like Drive Through RPG and stuff, they offer print on demand now. So people, if they still want a physical book, they can still come and buy it from you and then have it printed on their own cost. And it doesn't pass any of that on to you as a creator.
And you just gotta spend extra time. That's what me and Bill does. You gotta spend extra time, and it's just like anything else. Is you got to set it up just right so they can have it as a physical, instead of as Jeremy said, it doesn't print out like garbage. So, but yeah, I mean, but it doesn't take much at all. So.
And I think I was going to point out that, talking about like Drive Through RPG and some of these others, print on demand or download sites is a great way for, like, Dave and I do most of our stuff there because we're more of a budding publication group, game design group, that we're not at the point where we're like, okay, we want to put out a lot of money to advertise, a lot of money to, do a print book that we can now send out to people and deal with all that. We're going to put it on Drive Through RPG. We're going to build our audience that way. We're going to promote that particular part so we can spend our effort and time on other things than necessarily the larger picture of being a marketing engine.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, that was very nice. Let's see. Let's see. Here's something, and I think this can be taken in a couple different ways. So I'll go with this question. How do you bring a player, switching slightly GM / it can be also world design game system, into the story when there isn't the full interaction with it? Or how do you onboard maybe a person into a new system, a new game? Like what techniques maybe do you use to try to encourage players to buy in fully, I suppose, and learn the system, learn the world setting, whichever way you want to take that, because I think some of us are more GMs and some of us are more game designers. And since we have a good mix, let's get a question that can be answered by anyone.
I'll tackle this. So I think there's only so much that you can do as far as creating investment in someone. They have to be willing to meet you part way, wherever that distance is that you have to bridge the gap between. They have to at some point come to you. And as far as what you can do to try to shorten that gap is, for one, be excited. Nobody is ever going to be more excited about what you're pitching than you are. And it's just the way that the way that it works. So you have to make that excitement abundantly clear to that person. And I'm not talking about, come out and, pop streamers and shit and throw confetti, but go to them and say, hey, this is really, really cool. I had a really fun time putting this together. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Would you be willing to give it a try? Come with me and I'll show you why I think it's so cool. I think that's probably the biggest thing that you can bring to that exchange. Other than that, you have to almost kind of like play psychologist a little bit. You have to understand what makes that person tick, and be able to give them that experience whenever they're coming to you for a game or a game system or what have you. You have to understand what they're looking for and be able to deliver to some degree, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not excited, like the thing about sales, so this kind of goes back to sales. When I worked as a retail salesperson, one thing that always worked, and it was always part of the training, was like you have to know and like the product. Like if you're excited about it, then the people you talk to are going to get excited about it because you're going to be excitedly talking about it. But you have to, there's like a balance there. You got to make sure that you're not like overly excited that it scares people away, right? You can't be like, oh my God, guys, I'm going to tell you about this game. It's so cool, right? Like, but if you're like, yo, listen, I just found this game and it's super cool. Let me tell you all about it. And you're very excited about it. Guaranteed people are going to get a little excited about it. Or you're going to find out it's just really not their thing. And in which case, there's nothing you can do. You can't pull them to the watering hole to get them to drink water. But if you like it and you're excited about it and you present it as such, like showing your enthusiasm for it, then you will most likely pull people in.
I think that the way that I do it is I bring their character as close to death as quickly as possible. And then they get into it more right before they die.
I'll say Jeremy does it the opposite direction. Jeremy C does it the opposite direction. He's just like, this game is bullshit. You don't want to play it.
I'm not.
And then people go, well, now I want to play it because you hate it so much. Well, I don't actually hate it. It's actually kind of cool. I like it, but maybe
the reverse sale. I love it. All right, cool. I got a question in chat, so let's take that one before it gets too old there. So from Penatellos on our Twitch feed here is, how do you transition, man, I can't speak, from tabletop to digital format. I think this kind of goes for both as like a player, a DM, and maybe we can cover some of the tools or techniques we use to try to recreate as best we can that experience.
So like I think going from play to like a publication, is that what do you think that that's what they're asking, is like taking something
there's
Yeah.
I was muting myself over on my own Twitch. The question is really posed, like, how do you deal with like transitioning from face-to-face gaming into digital gaming? Like, I guess we were talking about like VTTs and like, you know, stuff like that, like the Roll20 and all that business. And really, there's no beautiful way to transition. Like, either people like it or they don't like it. I mean, personally, I don't use any of the virtual tabletops. I don't use Roll20. I don't use like the any of the other ones. I don't even know them all. That's how little I use them. But I do know that like I can run a game on Zoom. I think the key is to recognize that in the digital format, you're going to be doing a lot more theater of the mind style kind of things, where you're creating the scene in people's mind space, and you're not going to be like battle maps and stuff aren't necessarily what is the key. Even with Roll20, when you have those maps and stuff, you still have to recognize that you're building it based on your words and not just the miniature pieces in front of you. And that's the key to understanding it. There's like lots of different tricks. I learned a lot from, or a few really useful tricks from Runehammer Games and the Index Card RPG stuff and his little podcasty type deal he was doing for a while, where he talked about like building a room and just being like 3 details and some other stuff, which really sort of stuck with me on like, listen, I need to create this space in people's minds and I have to create it as fast as possible. So I want really cool details, but I don't want to like go on for 35 minutes about this room, because really they just need the mental image in their mind, and they're going to create the space on their own. And it's a skill that you can use, or you should use, when you're in person anyway. So it's really no different. But you can't rely on like the tactile feel of the books and the things in front of you. So I guess my advice is to like get really good at like describing situations in a cool way that is clear enough that people don't have to follow up with like multiple questions. And if you need to track physical space, then come up with a way to do that in a useful format. Like yesterday, I ran a Mecha Hack game that was about playing a sports game, and knowing where people were on the field was incredibly necessary for the game. So I just had this like sheet of paper that had these 5 sections on it, and then I used dice to just move them back and forth on my end. But we ended up labeling them, I think, about an hour in, so that the other guys could keep track in their minds which zones they were in versus the other people. And so that was enough. And then like the one guy had sort of recreated the same map that I was using on his table, but the other guy wasn't. But he could understand. He's like, okay, I'm in zone 2, he's in zone 1, he's in zone 3. Got it. Right. And then like you just create that ability to sort of recognize the space in their mind is the main way to do it. And then it doesn't matter if you're doing it through Zoom, unless you're 50 plus years old who's been gaming for 35 years or something, and you only like the tactile feel of books, and you don't like PDFs, and you don't like digital formats. That's a hard one. And I maybe these other guys will have advice, but that's my
I think that it's online gaming is honestly a lot better in a lot of ways, right? Like you get a lot, I feel like you get a lot more investment from your players online. I feel like everybody is a lot more polite online than they are in person. I don't know what that's about. I think it's just because you can't, right? We can't just sit here and talk over each other, else nobody can hear anything, right? It's like that in person too, but I feel like people are more oblivious to it in person, I guess, right? Whenever there's not these speakers on their head, right? So like if that's one of the issues, you know, like you can't, maybe they'll learn to like that part of it, right? The fact that people kind of give each other space to do their thing online a lot more. And I think people in general are almost a little bit like hobbyists. We're all hobbyists, right? But I feel like the online people are a little bit more serious about the hobby than than like the general, like, and I might be like, I'm starting to become, I didn't ever think I would start to become like one of the RPG like elders, but like I'm sorry, I might be completely disconnected. The kids might be on the TikToks running games now or something like that. I'm not sure.
What I've noticed, I actually find talking over is a little more difficult online because you're only seeing the person's face. Sometimes when you're standing around, you can make more motions, or like the DM can. Like I used to stand up and walk around when I was running stuff, and I could then say, okay, this person's not talking. Go to them and bring them in a little more. But then again, I also used a lot of tech. I used to have Roll20 on television, and my players would still be able to control their characters because I went to digital maps. There's there's a lot of different things. It depends how much tech. Like Scott's saying, he's keeping it simple, almost like you're sitting around a table with a group of friends. No maps, no anything. That works too. You can use a simple, I think Google Slides is it, or something that Matt Click was mentioning.
Yeah,
I think at one point, and I've used that in simple games where some people can move makeshift tokens around and have a simple little battle mat if needed. I said I haven't gamed, I think, since in person since 2017. It was a campaign ended. Actually got hurt at work, so it was just I was actually leaving that group, and because things were getting a little more difficult for me moving around, and then I start online. It's easy, so it's like as soon as it's over the game. Well, not in some of our games though. With Dave, we would talk for like a couple hours after, but usually the game's over. You're done. You're home. There's no travel time. You don't have to. There's not a huge cleanup and stuff. So there's a lot of pros and cons in both of them. That said, will I play in person again? I've only done the only in-person stuff I've done in the last so many years is probably been more convention stuff. But I probably will start again at some point in person because there's good and bad, and there's things to like in both of them. Sometimes being around people is a lot more, a little more social in some cases. Mm-hmm. But as I said, I'm exclusive online right now, so I said there's good and bad in both of them, and I think I'm one of the closer ones to being 50. So I think the question was, I said, but I've been gaming since late teens, I think 20s and stuff is when I started. So I may not have full history and stuff in playing. So I've probably split half my time online and in person. So it's probably easier for me.
Yeah. I can think of a couple things just off the top of my head that I've kind of encountered. I think there's a few things. Is one, if you're trying to create for a specific person an experience online, then part of that is you have to know that player and what gets them into the game. So if it is battle maps, if it is pictures, if it is, some sort of, visual representation, then you need to find ways to do that, whether it's sharing your screen to show like imagery of, something that gives you the feel for the scene or setting, using battle maps like Roll20 or Foundry or any of the other gazillion options that there are out there. Using that, I think my thing with online, and perhaps the way that our experience has been, and some of us were able to kind of curate our games at a certain point, because there are this huge pool of players that you can pick from all around the world. I mean, we've got in our group alone, we've got players from California to Australia, or to England if you go the other way. We've got people from almost all time zones that we can play with, which allows you to go, okay, I think you're fit for this game because of your play style. And with these players, I think you'll work well together. And it's not easy at first, because when you're first joining online games, you probably have to take what you can get until you can find a community that suits you. But don't be afraid to find a community that it suits you. Like, we may not all play well with other people, based on just their play style, but I have the opportunity to be like, okay, I'm going to go play with Scott. Well, that didn't work. I'm going to go play with Jeremy. Okay, that worked. I'm going to try to get in more Jeremy games or whatever. I've had great experiences with everyone here that I've played with. But I think there's that option.
Are you saying that there's a reason why my player base is so low?
Probably because you are more selective than
I'm actually extremely
I think that's
dated about that. Like at this point, like even to get into my Discord, like I have to have played a game with you. Like I don't actually have a Discord that actually know that I'm saying anything. I do have a Discord. It's the Gordinaak Games Discord. It's not a different one. Definitely not a different
definitely
one.
Nothing else out there.
Nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, once you get to a certain point as a creative, I think there's people that want that opportunity to play with you. And Dave and I have now gotten to the point where we love to have new players, but we really want to run a one shot or something with you to make sure that you're not going to be a wrench in our game system. You mesh with us, you mesh with our type of players. You're not like
I can tell you from experience that not all of the creators that you like are fun to play games with.
I'm sure. Yeah. Never meet your heroes, right?
I know this for a fact.
Yeah, how does the saying go? Never meet your heroes.
Yeah, I might not even be fun. I've been known to to take a game off the rails a few times.
I mean, yeah, I recently met a particular head of a company of games that I liked. Well, I didn't really meet him per se. I had an interaction with him talking about some products, and I walked away going, well, I guess I don't like that guy anymore. So
yeah.
But no, I think it is kind of a terrible thing to say that like you curate your games a bit, but it is kind of true. Like that was the thing that I realized like back in the day before I started doing any online stuff, there was the group of people that I knew that I was friends with here, and if I wanted to play a game, it was going to be with those same 7 people, right? Like always was. And we had some conflicts, and over time we had to remove people from our group and just be like, hey, listen, buddy, I don't like you anymore. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you not to come to this game anymore. Or this like 2 people broke up and their relationship was over and they didn't really want to hang out with each other anymore. So
that's the hardest.
Yeah, these things sort of happen, but when it comes to online, you can be like, all right, I had a game session with that person. I don't have to.
I'll never talk to that person again.
Yeah, I don't have to be in a game with that person anymore.
The arcane trickster will never be.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess it's rough. You gotta bounce like with that person, and you gotta try to like. I think the advice about finding out what drives them is probably the best advice in that particular regard. To answer your question on that.
I've also played with some of the worst people online as well. I've had mostly middle of the road in person games, but I've also met people online where I was like, wow.
Yeah. The guy who wanted to play an arcane trickster.
That's the worst. Yeah, that's
the Gordinaak game. He came to Maximum Apocalypse and then was like confused that it wasn't Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, but it's not Dungeons and Dragons.
It was Joe's game.
Yeah.
And he wanted to play. It was a Black Hat game, and he kept being like, "Well, I want to play an arcane trickster."
Oh, that's right. It was Joe's game.
We're like, dude, no, you can't play an arcane trickster in the Black Hat unless somebody makes an arcane trickster Black Hat class right now.
I think the most funniest comment I ever seen was our Princess of Apocalypse last Monday. We're streaming live, whatnot, running, and I look over at stream. I'm like, oh, we got a follower. But he came on and said, what the fuck? This is not Fourth Night. Oops. And then he left. but he followed us.
That's
Like,
dude. Maybe
okay.
you introduced a 12-year-old to D&D.
Who knows?
Maybe this is
Wild.
maybe. I feel like also my friends hate me in person. That's why I have better online, because my friends used to just whenever I was playing on in person a lot, my friends would come over and we would just drink as much beer as possible.
Yeah.
So we would end up playing for like maybe an hour. And I think because I'm ADHD, I think all of my friends are also ADHD, right? Like I only have ADHD friends. So like I guess all different types of ADHD, like some, because I have the super attentive type where I'm like listening to everything and everybody. And then all my friends have the kind where they don't listen to anybody or anything, so that's, I think that's why I have better luck on one.
So to go the exact opposite from Jeremy, and I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag. So Penn and Telos is one of my oldest friends. We've been gaming since middle school, and the transition that he's talking about, because we used to get together, all of our games were in person and stuff like that, and it would be this big social event. We'd party, we'd barbecue, and we would game for 6 to 8 hours at a time. It'd be like a weekend of thing. But then taking that and all of a sudden going, hey, we're now gaming online, and you only have 3 to 4 hours. And
have you thought about simultaneously barbecuing at both houses?
That'd be an idea. That would be kind of awesome.
Just carry and say like party at your individual houses and carry your camera around the whole time. Maybe even dress up like a volleyball with a camera on it, and have that to take around with you and stuff for the whole day. Yeah, and that's kind of what it was I always thought it was more, whenever I game in person, it's more of a party than it is like a game session, right? Like,
yeah, and I was gonna say, to his question, like there really doesn't have to be a massive difference between gaming in person and gaming online. It's really just about the presence of cameras instead of the presence of real people. Like obviously there's certain aspects that don't translate well, but you don't have to stream this shit. Like you can just turn a camera on and just have it be a private call, and point one camera at a battle mat if that's what you need, and one person is a dedicated mover of pieces. So you can do pretty much anything that you can do in person virtually if the situation dictates it. Now, like all of these people have pointed out, there are certain things that work much better digitally than they do in person. Things like background music, or voice modulation, or being able to have a much broader pool of players to draw from. And a lot of what they've also touched on are things like the focus of the game tends to be a lot tighter when it's virtually, because everything that you're doing is in this little box, and you have a finite amount of time live on the mic before you really need to yield it to someone else. But it kind of tends to lead towards a different style of play, more theater of the mind than the tactical, mechanical side. But it doesn't have to be that. You can certainly do really heavy role-playing games in person, and you can do really tactical, combat, movement-based, meticulous play online. There's tools to do that. It's just about kind of finding what you need in order to accomplish the style of play that you want to have.
Anyone here like Foundry fans? Anybody use Foundry VTT?
Yeah, just recently picked that up from my channel. And I mean, so I am a fan of not having to pay monthly subscriptions on every little thing I want to use. So the benefit of Foundry is that I could pay the one-time fee for the program, and then now I can utilize that on my channel versus like Roll20, which might have a little bit more robust of a system without having to hack Foundry, because you have to like download mods to make that work to your specific way you want it to work. But you have to pay every month to keep that subscription going to get all the same options that Foundry gives you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I've had it since one of the earlier versions of it. When I think I might have even got it on sale. And Dave, you're a dungeon draft guy, right? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that you introduced it to me on one of your streams. Kind of, I was watching one of your
mentioned that
streams
yesterday in the opening.
Yeah, we
while back.
talked about that yesterday.
And Dungeon Draft integrates right into Foundry, right, with the walls and everything like that, and the shadows. You can do lighting and stuff like that, and like I can say like without a doubt that I have been in Foundry environments that knock the socks off of any in-person miniature setup that I've ever seen, right? Like unless like you're playing, what's that guy's name? Steven something or other. What's the guy? Dwarven Forge guy?
Porknoy.
Yeah, Porknoy. Unless you're like playing with him, right? Like you're probably not going to get as like I did. And there's a lot of legwork sometimes. Like I did Ravenloft, the original i6 module in Foundry, and it was kind of difficult, right? Getting all the walls and stuff like that drawn so that the lighting wouldn't go past them and people couldn't get their tokens past it. But like it was absolutely worth it. Like whenever it came down to it. And it's super powerful too, especially if you know how to code. If you're a coder, then it's so good. I'm not a coder, so I have the bare minimum for my Foundry environments. But
no, dude, I'm super excited because we got it, and I haven't messed with it yet because I've been busy with all this other game stuff. And Bill, every time Bill runs the game, he adds more and more, and it's just like, ooh, you can do what? So
there's a question that Jeremy put it in the chat over here.
Yeah. So Bad Raven 667 in our chat here was saying, how would you approach someone wanting to GM the first time? Advice and tools to help making the transition as easy as possible.
Just do it. You have to just.
I mean, it's like jumping into cold water.
Yeah,
I mean, you're gonna mess it up. Don't get me wrong. Even experienced game masters, even myself, I've run convention games that I completely screwed up and was terrible.
Yeah.
I'm an awful GM. I've been doing this for so long, and I am just terrible at it. So
listen, Mecha T-Rex was fine.
Dude, I'll never, ever live that down. I'm not. Do we have to bring up past traumas in this? Is this?
That's another convention time.
I have horror stories.
I don't think of myself as a great DM, but I said I've gotten people of saying they had a lot of fun, so I figured maybe I am.
Right there, Paul, you said it right there. 2 words is I had fun. Well, not 2 words, more like 3, but yeah, still I had
as
fun.
As long as they have fun. And I think the best way is to go in, if you're not the GM, if you're one of the players, to understand that it's their first time, but it's as long as you have to have fun. Everyone has to have fun. You're gonna mess up. I was at a convention. I combined Harbinger with Shadows over Drift Chapel. First time I had done it, I said, you know what, shouldn't be hard. So I had Harbinger characters, and I created a Shadows over Drift Chapel thing, but I was still getting the feel of it. It was still relatively new, and I didn't really mesh them well together, and I had players questioning it. But overall, at least the other players still have the fun. It sort of removed the immersion a bit when they were sort of questioning some of that stuff, and it happens.
Yeah,
just go in. I still feel like I am, it's my opinion, I'm not a great DM, but you know what? When I was DMing more, I would post. I'd get at least a few people or a full game, and I have people saying, when are you going to run again? So you just have to keep doing it and keep have fun, do it.
Yeah, the thing is,
Like
there's going to
in
be a fear about it, right? You're going to fear that you're going to mess it up or do whatever, and that's honestly the biggest barrier, like the actual running of the game. Like there's lots of different tips and tricks and lots of different people's channels you can follow to learn them. But like essentially, if you understand how to do like how to just keep it flowing and like let things happen, even if technically the rules didn't say or whatever, there's all these different tricks, like I said. But the true real barrier is your own fear of messing it up, and that's what's going to stop you from doing it more than anything else.
And I actually have a blog post about this somewhere. I might have a blog. I don't know. I'm not sure. I really don't know. But I have a blog post about this, and I think a lot of people put way too much weight on um, uh, uh, what the GM is and what their role is at the table. At the end of the day, everybody's sitting down to play a game, and everybody is responsible for the fun just as much as the GM is. And whenever people think that they're supposed to be the only source of fun, I think that's what kind of drives the fear, right? Like they're supposed to be like even if you're hosting it at your own house, you're still playing with people. And if the players are expecting more of you than that alone, then maybe don't play with those people, right? Like if they're expecting more than just you, everybody sitting down to play a game where the rules are super complex and only certain people could possibly know them all and the intricacies of them, right? Like, and how they interact with each other, right? If they want you to know everything about it, then maybe, unless you're able to do that, maybe you shouldn't play with those people.
Also, to add to the don't play with those people, if the entire group says to you, well, that's not what Matt Mercer would have done.
Oh yeah, just quit.
Just get up and walk away.
Yeah,
just get up and walk away.
Yeah, don't ever compare yourself to others. Like you can definitely take inspiration from other people. I think first is let everyone know, hey, I'm new. I always like, especially when I first started, I always like to solicit like criticism from the players or praise, like not to look for the praise, but like I know I came out totally wrong. See, this is what DMs do. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? Like, where did this session have issues? Where did you feel like it went really well?
Yeah.
So now in the future sessions, I can go, okay, I know I need to describe the rooms a little bit better, but letting you role play for 20 minutes about the bagel that you just pulled out of the oven or whatever, then cool. Like if you all enjoyed that, then we'll go with that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be the first, like for even myself. No, when you first start, you're gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough and hard. But I do think the debrief concept, like the debriefing after the game, will help you in the very beginning. And I mean throughout, like you should debrief pretty much every game. But in the beginning, for sure, will definitely help you decide or figure out like what you did well and what your players are expecting to improve. Because the other thing to note is that each time you're playing with new people, there's going to be new challenges. And so, like I said, you'll never be perfect. And even throwing back to the like Matt Mercer thing, like he's fine. Like I have no problems with Matt Mercer because he also has like a realistic view. But the thing to note about him is that he's literally paid a ridiculous sum of money to be as good as possible at doing his job. And even then, if you watch some of the old stuff, I tried, he's actually kind of rough in the beginning. And he does rely heavily on his players also doing a lot of role playing back and forth. So the stories that we think of for Critical Role, if you actually break them down into what everyone's doing, it's really not just Matt Mercer that's doing this whole Critical Role experience. And so he's right. Like if the expectation is that you're the only one that's the fun, you're the source of the fun, then the players at the table don't even know what's going on. So they should be able to like roll with you and go down that road and provide you with some feedback. Like, hey, I liked your descriptions of the rooms. Hey, but this bad guy seemed like kind of a terrible bad guy, and I didn't really like him, and whatever. But that at least will help you. Okay, well they didn't like that bad guy. Now, did they not like him because he was terrible, or did they not like him because he was too hard? Like, what was the not like, right? And then that debrief allows you to sort of build from there and go, okay, well, I did fine. I just created a bad guy that was too hard for everybody, and they didn't like that.
I think. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to say, to touch on something that the other Jeremy had mentioned, is like nothing will give you the experience that you need to become a good dungeon master aside from just being a dungeon master. Like, there is no replacement for experience, for firsthand experience. There just isn't. And you wouldn't expect yourself to just hop onto a bicycle and be able to ride it without ever having tried before. Like, you're going to fall down, you're going to scrape your knee, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to make mistakes. Like, that's just a part of learning anything that's new. And dungeon mastering is no exception to that. But for me, the thing that I always tell people is the two things that you need to make sure to absolutely get down first, if you want to be a good game master, is your comfort and your communication skills. Those are the two things that you have to sharpen the most. If you're comfortable in the chair, and I'm not talking about like just physical comfort, I'm talking about like understanding that you know what you need, that you know what you want out of the session, and you know your strengths and your weaknesses, and you prepare accordingly, then if you're comfortable, you're going to run the best game that you can. And if your lines of communication are open with all of your players, then everything else is going to come pretty easy. So that's the 2 points that I always try to make sure that people understand going into running games.
I would take this into life, honestly. Right?
Yeah.
If you demystify 100%. The process, it will be a much easier thing to palate. I believe it or not, I have designed a house professionally before, right? I got paid to design a house before. I never thought in a million years that somebody would pay me to design their house, right? But once you learn how to do it, it's not like crazy or scary. It might be a little scary, but it's not crazy anymore, right? Like, and like you getting into and opening up whatever a thing is going to be your ticket into anything.
And I think to go off of all of it is, I was about to say, which even makes it even better, is knowing your players. And since you're running online and stuff like that, you don't have a lot of time. But what I have found that works for me is, well, all these guys probably do it. Oh, I know they do it. It's session zeros. But lately I've been doing 2 session zeros, because especially with new players, because at first when you get these players together, they may not be, they may be awkward, antisocial, whatever the reason is, and they're trying to make characters, trying to talk about the game, it's kind of on the level. I guarantee you, session 2, all of a sudden, that little person off in the corner that was, suddenly was just da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You're like, holy moly, wow. That's a night and day difference, But it's just getting to know the chemistry, between everybody and stuff like that. And by doing that, your games will start to run way smoother.
Yeah, and I was on that note, not session zeros. I'm terrible with session zeros. I do them. Don't get me wrong, I do. But it depends on if it's like a one shot, I tend not to. But when it's like a campaign, I tend to. But I was gonna say there's a little trick, and this is gonna be my last thing to say, and I think I'm like whatever. But
I'm gonna play the music.
One trick that I learned from the missions, Shadowrun missions group that is pretty big here in Portland where I am. They do this thing where they allow you to modify your character or change your character for the up to the 3rd session, and then after the 3rd session, that character is locked in. And what that does is when you start off, like, even if you have a session 0, like, sometimes you still create a character that doesn't quite gel with the group too much. And so then that you have a session, you're like, oh, I realize that there's all these skills that I don't need, or like other people have them, and so I'm overlapping, and it creates some sort of problem. So then by the 2nd session, you can modify the character, or by the 3rd session, right? But that after that, you have to play the character as is. But it allows some modification to happen, which allows for that better interaction. Like, oh, I realized that we actually need more of a face character, so I pulled some of the skills away from my combat stuff and leaned them into the face thing. And then now the party is a little bit more balanced because you've got a player who's now more of a face. and didn't have to do this like tremendous juxtaposition or like introduce a new character. Oh, well, I was playing Jack, but now I'm playing Bill, right? Like it's like same character, so everyone recognizes the history that they have with that character, but it's like, you used to be really good with swords. Yeah, I don't know, I just was a fluke that day or something, right? Like that kind of thing, and you can roll with that, and it does allow for the building of the player group.
It sounds really nice not to just kill that character and then make them
yeah, not everyone plays Mothership all the time.
It's really, really nice of you to play D&D with children. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm not knocking that at all. It's really
one little thing I've learned too, and then we'll move on to a final close-up thing, is if you are playing online, doing group chats with people is a great way for them to maybe post their character beforehand and start talking, because sometimes that, even if you're all doing a one shot, having that like week or so before where everyone's just chatting about the character and what their thoughts are and they can interact. I've been in groups where we started like role playing in chat about like how our characters would respond to things, and then by the time you actually get to the point where you're all together digitally, you're able to kind of jump in. So creating an environment, I guess, because we were talking more of the GM side of things, creating that environment for the players to feel comfortable so that you can just set a scene and step back and let them do their thing. And if they're not, you go, hey, what would Paul do, if that's his character name? What would Paul do in this scene? And then let him go. And then if no one else picks it up directly, you go, okay, so what's Jeremy thinking in this scene? And then just kind of start to give little cues, and then people will build up. I mean, eventually your players will get the gist and know what you're looking for, and you'll learn what they're looking for, and then you'll create a great gaming experience altogether.
Yeah, I plan on running a Hunter 5th edition game here soon, and I actually created a whole Discord channel, and so the 5 players have been back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes like out of character, but then sometimes like, this is what my character would do in this situation. So you're right. It absolutely helps.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you, all of our viewers who are currently watching this or who may watch this in the future. We do appreciate it. So this is Not at Con, which was set up by Scott as a charity group, but normally we've tried to get the community in the tabletop, absolute tabletop group and everything, try to get together for a convention. And since that wasn't happening this year, we wanted to keep that spirit alive. Our charity benefits Game to Grow, which is like a therapy way to help people through using role-playing games, which I think that's the reason many of us do play, is we have issues, and this helps out. So thank you very much for organizing and getting this together. Thanks for anyone who's participated, done any donations. We do appreciate that, and this is all just about community, and both our little community of Absolute Tabletop and the larger community that Game to Grow kind of represents. For closing, I'd just like us to all go around maybe one more time, and if there is a product or project that you're either currently working on or have recently put out, something that you're excited about, you'd like to highlight for people watching this as like a example of your work as a creative or whatever, whether that's a physical, digital, or like just your channel, some like game you've run that you're really excited about. Let's do that, and let's stick in the same order. So I'll start with Gordinaak Games, Jeremy below me, and we'll work our way through like we did at the start.
So like I said at the beginning, I'm just trying to work through the Kickstarter stuff right now. I have one part of it working on the layout, but it is Dive. Be on the lookout for backer kit pre-orders. I think that's a thing, right? I'm not 100% sure, but I Dive from the Deepest Trenches and Chum. And then also be on the lookout for Cocaine and Alligators 2 Rat World Adventures with everybody's favorite Rat World star, Ricky Rat. And I also completely illustrated by Brad Nugent. Shout out Brad. If you're watching, I know you're not because you don't play RPGs. And yeah, I just go buy the stuff that I made, right? Go buy that and then play it, and then tell your friends to buy it. Buy extra copies if you have to. I think the only place to get Gordinaak in physical right now is Spear Witch and the Tuesday Night Games store. Oh, and be on the lookout for an official Mothership pamphlet by me and my homie Matt House. I don't know when that's coming out, but it's dope. It's very pretty. I've seen some of the previews for it. It's awesome. Yeah, that's it, I think.
All right, Scott, if you're ready.
Yeah, I am. I was just trying to find my copy of Gordinaak because I have a physical copy. I actually used to have a box of like, I don't know, however many physical copies, and I ended up giving them to Jeremy, giving them back so he could give them to Streamer. So anyway, last place to find me. You can find my stuff through Drive-Thru RPG under Heroic Zeus Gaming for a lot of the digital stuff. But I do have a website. It's heroiczeusgaming.com, which is 2 E's. And then, but I'm working, my upcoming Kickstarter, which will be next month, is going to be the Few and Cursed RPG Kickstarter, where we're working with Timberwolf Productions, who makes the Few and Cursed comic book series, which is a bunch of comic books. And so this is some of the art right behind me here. But I'm also working with my original partners from Maximum Apocalypse, the guys from Rock Manor Games. They made the board game for Few and Cursed, and so we just transitioned that into the RPG. So we've got that going. That'll be in, it starts, I think, July 12th will be when the Kickstarter is for that. But essentially, if you've played Maximum Apocalypse or know it exists, it's the same system with some changes, some streamlininess, and also to match the setting, which is, a lot less zombies and a lot more cursed monsters and things rolling around. So that's my upcoming things. You can find that Kickstarter. It's going to be the Few and Cursed RPG with Rock Manor Games, and yeah, I think that's it for that.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Wow, where to begin? Once again, Dave, story guide that I'm known by. All of our stuff is XP Guild. Find us. Our products is on Drive-Thru RPG by the same name. Tonight only, not tonight only, it's every other Friday, but I am running 7 awesome ladies through a campaign of daring and adventures and whatnot. They are traveling in the deep jungles of our primary world setting. So come to find out what they are up to and if they survive. That's going to be at 7:30 Central Time. Let y'all do the math on the other time zones. But as far as products, wow, we have a lot in going on. We don't have official titles yet, but 2 of them in specific that we are doing is a Inns and Taverns mod supplement and a sailing supplement that you can literally take our product, sit down with your players, and let your players actually build their own ship. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and we have a lot of work still left on those. The XP Guild.
Hi, everyone. Let's see. So, as I said, I don't have any products coming out right now, but the only thing that I'm doing, we are playing a co-op Starforge game on my Twitch channel, The Raven Rolls, with the Griffin's Nest and with Dimension 119. And no DM, just the three of us playing a game. Without a DM, there's a little less on the role playing, but we still have the creative aspect. We're creating the scenarios that we experience, and then we mess up all the dice rolls and nothing. We never get any progress. We just seem to be bad at rolling the dice. But yeah, you can join it. It normally have been tonight and every 2 weeks, so you can catch that. And hopefully we'll expand on what we're doing from Starforge there. So yeah.
Cool. Jeremy.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you very much for hosting this, Bill. Everybody, my name is Jeremy, the other Jeremy, also known as Erasmus in various corners of the internet. I have a YouTube channel called the Erasmus Expeditions. I run a lot of live plays and such there. I will be running a game there in about an hour and a half, a little less than, and super excited about that. What else? Like I mentioned kind of at the top, I currently have about 3 projects that are in the works. Biddy Battles, I'm working on with Run Right Play, is going to be a kind of a dice fighting game based largely on games like Super Smash Brothers and the early Street Fighter and things like that. Really excited about the direction that has been headed lately. I'm working on Treasure Quests with Philip Matty. Treasure Quest is a game that I've been lucky enough to play test a couple of early versions of. It's very much kind of pulp action adventure, Indiana Jones, The Mummy type stuff. Also very fun and really excited with how that's starting to shape up. And then I am working on Gore, which is a game that is very heavily modeled on Doom. It's meant to be a really kind of rules light but role heavy game. It's very fast paced and very visceral. And we've play tested that a little while ago on my channel. And I'm starting to put like the polishing touches on that, and am in talks with some people about possibly coming on board to help publish it. So I'm really excited about all of those projects. And like I said, I'm running a game here in just a moment on my channel. And then on Sunday evening, I think it's 6:30 Eastern, I am going to be running a game on Mini Terrain Domain on Twitch, which will be one of the game systems that I've designed called the Expedition Engine. This one is pirate themed. It's called Black Hearts on Blue Seas. There are 3 versions of the Expedition Engine that you can find for sale on DriveThru RPG. Black Hearts on Blue Seas is one of them. Monster Jungle is another one, and the third is called Dead End. So if you like that kind of stuff, go check it out. And yeah, man, this has been awesome. So thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the chance to game with all of you in the future.
Yeah. Thank you all again, one last time, all these amazing people for coming on and providing such great information. Thank you to those who joined us in chat live. Thank you to anyone who wants to watch this in the future on YouTube or whatever. I will be putting this up on my channel. I'll also provide the video to anyone here who wants to put it on their channel. I'll figure out how to transfer that somehow. And yeah, we appreciate it. We appreciate you all for joining and participating and making this community of gamers so amazing. And we hope to see some of you guys who are watching this. We hope to see some of you producing content and producing games. And hopefully we could, at least in a little bit, be help and inspiration for that. So thank you, everyone, and goodbye. Okay, we are out. I've just got the